Well, hey there, fellow streakers. How are you today? We are so excited to have with us a very special guest. He wrote the foreword to the book. He's a primary author on the 4 Disciplines of Execution, which is the best-selling book on execution in the world. We are so excited to have him. Ladies and gentlemen, Chris McChesney is with us today. Let's start streaking, shall we?
This is great. Seriously, we need background music. Where's the Chicago Bulls entrance music?
My favorite part of any basketball game.
I know.
I'm such a little kid. I get so hyped when they do that at the beginning. I love that.
We need that.
Chris, we're so happy to have you today. And, obviously there's a lot that we can talk about today, and there's so many things that we want to cover off with what you do with execution, the 4 Disciplines of Execution, how long you've been involved with that. But I think what we need to do, first of all, is we need to go and talk just a little bit about you, as far as give us a little bit of flavor as far as you, your family life, how many kids you have, everything that's going on there, because I think that'll add a little bit of flavor to what we're going to be talking about.
The quickest way to get to know me is to know that I am right now on with 2 of my very favorite people in the world. Okay, so
right back at you.
We weren't just fast friends; we were fast best friends.
Yes,
and the only person we're missing right now is my wife, and so
I know.
The 4 of us have been buds for a long, long time. We have many adventures together. Their daughter, who is best friends with my daughter, talked me out of committing a felony once. We got great stories.
That is the truth. I forgot that she did talk you out of that.
That day, I understood the power of Lily. I really got what she brought it. I was not gonna pull the plug on that sheriff's boat, and
you were thinking about it though.
I had the whole plan. I had the
we got to tell the story now, because everyone's going to be wondering. All the streakers out there are going to be wondering, what is the story?
I know. Lily talked me down.
Let's just say it included Florida, some illegal splashing, a ticket.
Chris and I were on the
runners.
ocean. We had rented wave runners. Chris and I were on the ocean. We had rented wave runners, and we were just tooling around out there and having some fun. And the sheriff thought that we were trying to splash each other, which in Florida, I guess, is
illegal.
Illegal act on the ocean.
Everything else in the world is okay in Florida.
But splashing each other in the ocean with wave runners, that's not. So the sheriff, he came over, he pulled us over in the ocean. And we had to follow him in.
You're the only 2 people.
Do you remember this, Chris? We had to follow him in.
It was like 2 hours. He ruined our whole afternoon.
He did.
Why? And I knew where the plugs on that boat were.
This is when I learned
about a $90,000 boat, and it was going to the bottom. I was hot. It was going to the bottom of that bay at 2 a.m.
He was very hot.
This is when I learned Jeff and Chris can't be left alone.
Yeah,
even on the ocean, they'll get pulled over.
Yeah. So we've had parental
supervision ever since.
Well, what we want to talk today about is a little bit about, Chris, we want to learn a little bit, and for our streakers out there, talk to us a little bit about your work with the 4 Disciplines of Execution, because that is the best-selling book in the world on execution, and you've done a lot of work there. And really, the work that you did there was some of the impetus to what we do in streaking. I mean, it was the genesis, the seeds of what it was that we do in streaking. So talk to us first about that, and then we can move into a little bit more about how you use streaking today and some of your views on it.
Yeah. So 30 years with Stephen Covey's organization, Franklin Covey. 20 of those years was focused on this one idea. And I love this thought that it's better to fall in love with a problem than to fall in love with a solution. And the problem that we fell in love with was how to execute on an organizational strategy, a plan that was going to require a change in people's behavior. So you're probably streakers, you're probably already going, oh, okay, I can see the impetus for this right now. So this idea of achieving a breakthrough result that required a significant change in human behavior, a high degree of engagement, started this work. And we've worked with, over 20 years now, we've worked with 4,000 organizations all over the world. We're on the second edition of the book. The first edition came out 11 years ago, and it's been just a tremendous ride. Jeff and I got connected. How long ago, Jeff? Now is it?
Oh, I think we're 11 years, almost. Yeah, 10, 11 years.
Yeah.
Now?
So right about the same time. So the execution work's been going on for 20. Jeff and I connected at about the same time that the book was coming out, and at that time, it continued to snowball. And the whole 20 years, it's not like we had an idea and we've been running that idea for 20 years. We've been continually refining that idea. And the sort of the foundational concept is that there are, and I think this will be a nice bridge into streaking, Jeff. You can sort of pick up on the other side of this. The foundational idea is that there are two forces in our lives that are sort of at odds. And on one side is all of the work associated with just maintaining our lives the way we want them. Okay? On the other side might be that really significant breakthrough objective that we want to achieve. And the point was that the day job, maintaining all the things that we have to maintain on a day-to-day basis, is so riddled with immediacy and urgency that it tends to suffocate a significant breakthrough. So if you've ever been in a situation where weeks are going by and you're as busy as you can be, or your team is as busy as they can be, and yet you don't feel like you're getting any progress on the big thing because the day-to-day life support is suffocating it. That's what our work was about. It was all about how do you make this thing actually happen. And then Jeff, people kept asking, if I'm going to bridge to you right now, people kept asking, well, yeah, but what about help with my day job? Like, that's not going so good.
It's still the day job.
I get that there's this other thing that's really significant, but hey, man, like life support, like that, and this really is more important, right? Life support. I always think about going into the emergency room. If you ever go to the emergency room, like the last time I was in the ER, I had a kidney stone. That was my, shutting off that pain was my breakthrough result.
Like, make it go away.
If you've never had a kidney stone, they're not exaggerating. It's all that. 5 stars.
And worse.
Yeah, it was. When it came on, I knew immediately it was a kidney stone, and I actually started to laugh a little bit. I was like,
oh, I know what this is.
This is what they're talking. So this is what childbirth is like. Right? So then the laughter stopped. Then there was a lot of crying after that. So anyways, I go into the emergency room, and what dawned on me was they don't want to talk about my kidney stone, because that kidney stone isn't going to kill me. But if I go into shock, they could have issues. And so they talked about my blood pressure and my heart rate and all the elements associated, and my temperature and all those kind of things. That's life support. And so Jeff, as we were going down this road, and Jeff took to this, Jeff immediately became one of our more in-demand and successful consultants and threw himself into this work. But then you started to have an observation, and I'll let you pick up on that side.
Well, and the observation came with Jamie and I really looking at this together and talking about how there's got to be something within this framework as far as the whirlwind of activity that we've got going on, that there are, and to use a little bit of the words that we use in the 4 disciplines, there's urgent things and there's non-urgent things, both in the world of breakthrough results and also in the world of the whirlwind. There's urgent and non-urgent things that I need to be doing. And the whole idea that we started to talk about is, how do we keep our motivation toward the things that are really important? Let's talk about falling in love with a problem of motivation inside of a whirlwind of activity with things that aren't inherently urgent or
not acting on you.
Yes, exactly. And that's where Jamie and I really started to talk about streaking. I mean, and what that was, and how you move things that you really want in your life, but are not going to be inherently urgent.
Those things that are so important, and that are important, but you don't want them to get to the place that they're urgent because you've ignored them so long that now it's threatening. So I think like exercise.
Yeah, they
you know what
get
I mean?
urgent on
Exercise
you,
is
right.
important, but if it's ignored, it can become urgent because now, now it's become life-threatening and you need to do something to change. And so those things that we're like, we want to get this place where we have these things that are so important and need to be a part of our life, consistently a part of our life, even though so much of life is taken up with those things that are urgent and life support or day job or just needing to be done all the time.
And what was, I remember like, there may have been conversations before this, but I remember having breakfast with you and I can see it in my mind. It's like a white restaurant. We're having breakfast and you're telling me about this thing that you're doing.
Right.
And you'd already been streaking for a while. And one of the disciplines in the 4 disciplines of execution is create a cadence of accountability. And that's maybe the grandfather of streaking, you might say, right?
Absolutely.
And I don't take credit for this one. This one came from Sean Covey. I don't know if you know.
I didn't know that.
Story behind
No, what's the
this.
story behind that?
Yeah, it's kind of a spiritual story.
I love it.
So he really was stuck on this was before I got involved with 4 disciplines. I sort of took it over, but I didn't give it its birth. It wasn't even called the 4 disciplines of execution. It was called aligning goal for results. But there were these 4 steps, but it wasn't coming together for them. Their original hypothesis. And so Sean Covey, who is a best-selling author in his own right, and he's the son of Stephen R. Covey, who wrote 7 Habits. Sean wrote 7 Habits of Highly Effective Teens, and he was really involved in this project. Sean just decided to make it a God thing. And so he goes to his temple, and he's a member of the LDS Church, and he just went just to meditate. And there was something that was said in that religious service that reminded him about a pattern of accountability.
Oh, wow.
Right? And so he got this insight, and this is how he started to create a cadence of reporting and a cadence of accountability. So that's where Discipline 4 comes. That's why I was so willing to have him on the book, because we had done, he had been out of the cycle for about 10 years, and we brought him in to be part of the book because I knew that he had such an integral role in the original creation. But this weekly rhythm was so inherent in human behavior. And so when I listened to Jeff for the first time talk about streaking, it was one of those moments where you realize, there's a new application of a true principle. Mm-hmm. And you had gravitated to that true principle, or Jamie had. I don't know who originally, I know there's a mix in this thing right now, but you'd been doing this. And as soon as I heard it, I thought, oh yeah, that's that application on the other side, on the day job side.
That's really fascinating. You had not ever shared that story with me before. I never knew that with Discipline 4.
I would have bet money that I had, but I love that I got to do this on this podcast.
Right now, on the podcast, fully revealed new story that I had not heard about.
It's all they're total transparency now, folks. The kimono's open. Don't close your eyes. Bad visual.
So, because one of the things with discipline number 4, a cadence of accountability, is all about the consistency of that meeting happening every single week. And I think that's what, as Jamie and I talked about it, that's what we gravitated towards, is this idea of not, a lot of people will talk about consistency, which I do a little bit of a separation here, and we talk about this quite a bit, is there's consecutive behavior, things that I do every day, every week, every month, and then there's consistency in the behavior. How I might do that behavior may be consistent, but if it's not consecutive, I'm not going to get the power of the compound interest over time. Does that make sense?
I like that. Consecutive. Yeah, that's a great term. Yeah, I totally got that.
So as you look at it, if I'm not having consecutive weekly meetings, I can be consistent in the meeting itself. We always do the same things. We review the thing. But if it's not consecutive, you lose all the power of it. All of it's gone at that point. And I think that is where I started to look in my own life. I could be consistent at, for example, reading a particular genre of book that helps me in my consulting. But if I wasn't consecutive in doing that every single day, it wouldn't have the impact or the benefit. I mean, Jamie, do you see a similar thing?
Yeah, and I've seen it in my own personal life that needing to have. In fact, we were talking about it with I was talking about with Katie the other night when she was talking about a exercise program that she's working on, and that they have a private Facebook group that they all talk with each other about so that they kind of keep each other motivated and ask questions. And she was saying how much she would love it if all of these women that were working on this exercise program together, because they're all like moms that are dealing with postpartum and kind of getting back into shape after having gone through all of the changes of pregnancy and labor. And she said, if they could have a streak that because part of what they have to do is these abdominal exercises, and the basic abdominal exercise that she wants them to do every day is a breathing exercise that Katie says if you do 8 of these breathing exercises every day, it takes like less than half a minute. And she was saying, I wish that these women could set this streak around these abdominal breaths every day, because then they wouldn't have those times that they get on and say, well, I missed yesterday and I missed the day before, but I'm back on, I'm recommitted. And we were just talking about, if you have that streak, you've got that floor that, so you may, as a mom, as a new mom especially, things happened and you didn't get to do the full abdominal exercises that you wanted to do that for that day, but you did those breaths, you stood on the floor, and that floor, you can stand on that floor for a couple days till you get to that day where you can reach for the bar again, where you can reach a little bit more and do a little bit more than what you usually do. But you don't have that feeling of having to start over, or that feeling of like, oh, I missed a day. Instead, when you've got a streak, you're like, okay, I didn't do as much as I wanted to, but I didn't miss a day. I still did my breathing exercise.
So
I've got that floor.
You don't ever have to climb out of that
You don't
pit of discouragement.
Exactly.
Yeah. So the floor is here. That's sort of that minimum streak level.
Yep.
But if you break that streak, this is where human performance really falls off, and it takes enormous energy to overcome all the self-doubt and the discouragement and everything else. Yeah, that's really powerful, Jamie.
So it was just especially, and as I was talking to it, really spoke to me, because as a new mom, that is something you really do have to fight, is that feeling of discouragement, because so much of your day is spent doing such basic things like, wow, I didn't even shower today. And so you fight those.
You're playing defense the whole day.
The whole day. And you know what you're doing.
on offense and you are on defense.
You know what you're doing is important, but at the end of the day, you're like, I don't have anything to show for what I've done except that my children are still alive. And so it just, as she was talking, it just really gave me a visual of what it's like in these different times of life to be able to have a floor. And Jeff, I was going to tell you, I was like, I really think we should talk about floor days and bar days, because oftentimes people say, well, a streak, that's a pretty low bar. We're like, it's not even a bar. It's the floor. It's the floor, so that you can have days that you reach for the bar, because the bar is something you're reaching for. So I really love this concept of not having to start over every day, and that consecutive gives that to you.
I've been living on that. Like after Omicron, so my business, like I talk to large audiences for a living, or I did before COVID. And it keeps like
it's coming back.
Like, oh yeah, that's what you say. It opens up and then it closes. Then it opens up and then it closes. Then it opens up but the phone doesn't ring. And it's like I have to mentally detach myself from external validation. Right? If my sense of security and self-worth comes from my business and from external validation, then I'm a wreck.
Yeah.
And one of the things that streaking does, I think, goes to one of Stephen Covey's core ideas. Covey said that your sense of self-worth needs to come to your adherence to your values. And he referred to that as it being intrinsically validated. And what I've noticed is, and he had a term for it, he called it the private victory. And when I can click off the streaks for a day, Natalie and I, my daughter's a big streaker, we will text each other when we click off the streaks. Even if the phone didn't ring, even if nothing's going on the right side, Jamie, it's what you said. I got a floor, and I'm not going to get into discouragement. I'm not going to allow external issues to discourage me. I got my floor. I think that has maybe the most personally impactful part of the work that you two have done.
And which is what you talked about in the foreword. And in fact, I don't know if I've told you this, but we get a lot of people responding to us about how much they enjoyed your foreword in the book, talking about intrinsic and extrinsic motivation and validation.
And you tell them about the hot tub when they say that?
See, I knew you were going to bring it up.
Oh boy.
Like the outside visual. It's not always water with us, but there was a hot tub.
Here's what was happening. I was in the hot tub with Chris. Our families were on vacation.
Thank you.
Thank you for saying
Let's add that, because the other part didn't sound right.
These couples are very close.
We were on vacation in Florida that our daughters had set up. Remember, they twisted our arm into it.
I know. We're at their whim. Yeah.
Yeah. So we're down there, and Chris and I, well, all of us were, I think we're in the hot tub, around the hot tub, whatever it was. Anyway, we were talking about streaking. And I was explaining the concepts, and Jamie was adding in information, and we were talking to it. And then, Chris, you got to tell the story about the mirrors at the funhouse, because that's really what
that's kind of really related to this.
Yes,
thank you.
Yeah.
So this is kind of what I'm talking about, and it's funny because I keep thinking I'm reliving this experience, but I've had this experience before, and this was the start of some of that. So Covey's analogy, which really Stephen Covey made a real big impact on me on my early 20s. And this is why I followed him and stowed away in his organization without being paid for months, and I was a groupie.
But like, I'm a groupie. I'll do anything to be a part of it, please.
Anything to be part of this. Right? So they had to call me into HR 4 months later. They're like, we just figured out you don't work here. Like, there are minimum wage laws. We could be sued. You can't just keep showing up. Oh, and there's no internship. We looked that up too. Made up the internship. Oh, and you don't work for the Daily Herald. That article, I mean, we're glad they printed the article you wrote, but you're not employed by the newspaper. That's all.
Oh, the ingenuity.
That's all true, by the way. There's no exaggeration there.
That's amazing that you did all that to get a job to work with Franklin Covey.
Out of it, so. All right. So but here's the point. Extrinsic validation, and it's so common. It's the norm, especially as we mature in life and at immature levels. We get our validation as a person based on sometimes on how we're seen by others, and it's not an accurate portrayal of who we are. And it's Covey's analogy, which was beautiful, is that it's like trying to get an assessment of who you are by looking at the mirrors at a fun house, at a carnival, right? They're distorted. And if we get our sense of self-worth from other people's opinion, then, and we subject ourselves to this external validation, we lose all control in life. And it's a huge obstacle, and sort of Covey's whole idea about the first 3 habits creating a sense of independence, where you're not dependent on other people's validation. It really shows up around whether you're extrinsically or intrinsically validated. So intrinsically validated means yeah, people might like me today or they might not like me today, right? And with social media, wow, this is an overdrive right now.
That's what I was thinking too. Exactly.
Right? That's the first thing that comes to mind. But if I'm intrinsically validated, then yeah, there's all that external stimuli that's coming at me. But like you just said, Jamie, if I hit my floor, Covey called it the private victory. And I've got that. Like now, all right, I can't go below the floor. If something good happens, great, but I got my floor.
I gotta stay here.
And by
I
the
love
way,
that.
Go
ahead. No, go ahead.
Covey not only talked about the importance of moving from a sense of dependence to independence, but the big idea behind 7 Habits, if you're not familiar with it, is that it's only people who are independent emotionally and not attached to the social mirror that have effective relationships with other people. If you
Really?
are emotionally dependent, you sabotage your relationships. And
Interesting.
a really healthy relationship is a choice that an emotionally independent person makes. So what you may not realize by streaking is that you're building the emotional foundation necessary to improve the relationships that you have with other people.
That's really good. I'm thinking, so
This is the piece of 7 Habits nobody sees. Like they get lost in the habits, but it's the maturity continuum that is that's what really hooked me on his work.
yeah, is the ability to have. Well, and I'm thinking, as you're talking about a fun house, I'm thinking of those mirrors, and in one mirror, it makes you super, super skinny. And then in the next mirror, it makes you super, super fat. And then in the next mirror, your head is like a pin. And then in the next mirror, your head is like ginormous. And I thought, if you are making decisions based on those things that you're seeing, then yeah, you're going to sabotage all kinds of things, because in one moment, your head is really big and you're making decisions on that. And the next moment, your head is super small and you're making decisions on that. But the whole point is that none of it is reality. None of it is real. And so now you're making actions and decisions based on something that isn't, it's perception. There's no reality to it.
This is really fascinating. I've just been thinking through everything that you just talked about. And one of the areas of streaking that I think about quite often is the area of when you get the private victory, the self-credibility that comes with it. You know, as we talk to new and burgeoning streakers, ones that are just starting out, they're starting their first or their second streak. Many times they'll start a streak and it will be hard and they won't keep the streak alive. And what happens is they start to look at it and say, well, I can't do anything, because they think that what they've done, because the first law of streaking being make it laughably simple, is they've already broken the first law. And so now I start to doubt my own self-credibility, and then maybe doubt the tools or the frameworks or the principles.
There's just a lot of doubt.
A lot of doubt that comes in. But when you truly set it up as laughably simple, for example, writing at least one sentence daily, and I've seen this more times than not, as soon as they hit about 60 to 70 days of doing that consistently, a door unlocks inside of them, and all of a sudden they realize, I can be consistent, and not only can I'm credible with myself, and in being credible with myself, I can do other things as well, and it unlocks this door of emotional independence from all of these external resources.
And I'm thinking, Jeff, as we were talking, our podcast with Whitney Johnson, when she talked about the difference between saying who I want to be and who I am, I have thought about that so much, because I think I have hid behind a little bit the phrase of who I want to be, not wanting to, feeling like in order to say I'm that person, I have to reach some kind of certain level that in actuality is kind of comparing to what other people are doing. And as I talked to her, as we listened to her, and this idea that if I've been streaking and I've been doing these things, I am a person that writes. I am a person that keeps a journal. I am a person. So like, I changed my B statement from I want to be a person who's intentional in my actions to I am a person who's intentional in my actions, because I am doing things every day. It doesn't have to be at this arbitrary level that always is just the next mountain over because I found somebody else who's doing it better than I am, which is always the case. And so I've found a lot of power in that the streaking, I am doing those things. It doesn't have to be at a certain level all the time, and it doesn't have to be what other people are doing. It just is doing because I'm doing it. So it's become much more intrinsic.
I know you guys have taken flack on the laughably simple and that people challenge you on that.
All the time.
A lot, yeah.
I am all in on that. I'm not like 80% in your corner. I am 100% in your corner. Through small and simple things are great things brought to pass. Mm-hmm. And this little act of faith, Jamie, what you just articulated about its identity creation.
Mm-hmm. It really is.
I was perfect in this thing. I am that thing.
Yep.
I am the creator. And can I share another Stephen Covey?
Yeah.
So I was with a bunch of his sons. Oh, we were all there. We were with his sons in Hawaii. Remember what I told them? I said, I can out Stephen Covey you boys on your dad. Like I am.
Yes.
Yes.
All right, well, this one's great. He's on Oprah. I'm not making this up. It was a big deal for the Covey Leadership Center when Stephen Covey was on Oprah for the first time.
Well, yeah.
Right?
For the first time.
Yeah, for the
I love
first time.
that.
They became friends. So he's on Oprah, and they turn the mic to the audience at some point. And this little kid says, what can I do to become a more effective person? And so he gets off the habits. You guys are going to love this. I can't believe I've told you this before. He gets off the habits and he says, make a promise to yourself every day and keep that promise. Right? And it's just this personal integrity to yourself. Mm-hmm. Even if it's small, right? That was his advice to the 12-year-old boy in the audience on Oprah Winfrey.
That I got chills as you were saying that, because it's true. I mean, just thinking of that, the make a promise to yourself. And the flip side of it is, I know how I feel when I've committed to something, and oftentimes it's like something super big, and then I don't keep it, and it just it chips away at you. And so having these laughably small things, these little drops of water that I'm consecutively and consistently keeping promises to myself every day, it has massive amounts of impact. That's really good.
As you talked about, and Chris, you talk about the intrinsic validation, and Jamie, you talked about the I am statements. Mm-hmm. In the streaking app, so one of the areas that we've enabled in the streaking app is community, and people comment on people's streaks all the time as far as what they're doing in those streaks and how they're doing them. One of the, so I had written a comment about this I am statement, and how I want to be is the decision. You're still in the decision-making process. Whereas I have decided to be this person, and I'm going to move forward with it. And in order to be that person, I'm going to do at least this laughably small thing every single day. It is the most powerful thing. It unlocks the most power that I have ever seen in my own life or in other people's lives.
And if you'd like to have a life free of regret, maybe that.
Maybe.
A little bit.
Kids, that's not a small thing. Right?
Huge.
Those little things that we don't have to do that. And it doesn't have to be huge. That book, The Power of Small Wins, mm-hmm. might share, that might be worth an episode at some point. They went back, the Power of Small Wins people went back to the work that Frederick Hertzberg did on the 60s about human engagement.
Wow.
And Hertzberg's thing has been forgotten. I'm trying to, my personal quest is to get Hertzberg's research back out in the public. I blame Gallup. Hertzberg's research was, look, there's a big difference between satisfaction and engagement. Satisfaction is all the reasons you might like your job. But engagement is why you like the work, why you engage in the work. And so he tapped into this, and what he came up with was two things. And I think you hit them both in streaking. And it was progress and purpose. As long as you are making progress against something that has meaning, you're engaged, you're healthy. A human being, what human beings cannot handle is futility. It's like what you were saying, Jamie, when we get in that, oh, broken, I failed again. This is why the small win or the laughably simple is such a critical part to start building our self-confidence. You know, like a shark, we have to be moving forward. We have to be making progress, and you ratchet it down.
And it needs to have purpose, that feeling of purpose.
Wow. So, Chris, as you have, I know that, so one of the things you said and that I appreciate is this, you're 100% in the corner of laughably small things. And that's not always been the case as far as any one of us. We always want to go for the big, bold, and the beautiful. So how have you been able to ratchet it down and say, okay, I am going to go to the laughably small, and share with us what some of your streaks are?
Go my streaks.
Yeah.
I'm in. We got me recharged. I've been streaking for a couple of years. The pandemic, I had some great streaks that started in the pandemic with my working out and my water skiing. I have a passion around slalom water skiing, and I still.
Okay, I knew you had a passion around slalom water skiing when we went out on your back deck and you had some board nailed to the deck so that you could, I don't even know what it was. I asked Constance, I'm like, what is this? She's like, that's Chris's water skiing thing. It helps him.
No, it's funny, but that's actually part of my streak. So one of my streaks is, like, I can ski okay, but there's like 6 things that have to happen. And the caveman part of your brain does not want these things to happen. Like when the boat's doing 34 miles an hour, you're whipping across the wake at 60 miles an hour. Your brain is in life preservation mode. It doesn't want to put the hips forward. It doesn't want to raise the chest. It wants to do this. And so there's like different parts of the cycle. Your body has to be in different positions. But the problem is your caveman brain takes over, and you can only think of one thing when you're out there, and you have to think of 5 things. So I made a streak, and all my streak is 5 minutes of visualization a day. I did this since Hawaii, Jeff.
Oh, wow.
And it's 5 minutes of visualization a day just on 3 elements of this pattern. So you talk about laughably simple. My streak is 5 minutes. I set the clock. I get my little handle, and it's chest, hips, shoulders, chest, hips. And I'm visualizing the course. I'm trying to create this rut in my brain so that when I get on the course, it'll be automatic. But I've been doing this for 6 years. I've never been able to get that in my brain. We water skied last week in Fort Lauderdale with Cambria and Mariah. And I hadn't skied in 3 months, and it's normally a disaster. And I have one of the best runs I've ever taken on video. It worked, and it was only 2.5 weeks of this streak daily, and I had gotten that visualization process in my mind. I was able to do that. So like I'm like, sky's the limit now. Like I can start moving on to other things. But it was a classic example of a very small thing. Mm-hmm. So anyway, everybody's like, why is he so excited about that? That's a big deal to me.
You know what though? See, this is the beauty of it, honestly.
It was a big deal. I don't care. I get no social
huge. It doesn't matter.
No one externally is into my water skiing. There's no club. There's nobody clapping. I don't get to. No one cares. You look the same as you looked 3 years ago. Why? Don't show me another one of those. I get no external validation at all. but I don't need it. I love this thing. It's mine, you know?
Right. Exactly. So
Right,
what are
you
your
want my
other
streaks?
streaks?
You
Yeah.
want my
What do you
streaks?
got?
Okay.
Yeah.
So one, laughably simple, connect to either Aaron or Ben every day.
Okay, those are your sons.
Yeah, those are my sons. So I got 7 kids. I got 5 daughters. That all seem to be doing good. I got 2 boys.
Wait, so wait. Is that because your daughters, like, they'll connect to you, you connect to them? It's not so. And the reason I'm saying this,
yeah, that's part of it. But the other part of it is just these. It could be a son and a daughter. It just happens to be 2 boys. They get stuck. They get in ruts, and so like I've been really good on this streak. So it's just like, okay, I called on a reference for Aaron. I touched base with Ben last night about what's going on. I always put this off because I'm like, what am I doing with Aaron right now? Benjamin, what are you doing? That regret. No. I don't have to move mountains. I don't have to solve the world. I just gotta touch base every day, and something good comes from it.
Wow.
They know
I love
invested in them.
I love the way that you said that, and for just a second, where you're like, I don't have to move mountains. I don't have to solve problems. All I have to do is connect. That's a huge release as a parent to be able to say, I don't have to move the mountains that are in front of them. I don't have to solve their problems. I just want to connect. That's it. Just a simple connection that can happen in, like, really, to be honest, a million different ways. If you're looking at it and saying, okay, I connected in that way.
Yep. Most of my streaks I get done in the morning before I even start work.
Yeah.
So I've got a vitamin streak. I've got a floor on 15 minutes of cardio. I usually do between 30 and 45 minutes, sometimes an hour. I have to do that for the skiing. But like you said, Jamie, I set the streak at 15 minutes.
Yeah.
Because I'll at least maintain. I won't go backwards at 15 minutes.
Right. You don't have to start over.
I've got 10 minutes of weightlifting. Normally I'm 30 minutes to 45 minutes on the weights. And if I can only get 10 minutes, I got a couple of dumbbells under my thing. I can do it right here. I don't have to miss that one. Ski visualization I got. I've got 5 minutes on a management book. So as I'm driving around, I don't just go to my fun listening stuff, but I got 5 minutes. I'm in a thick management book, but I got one for you, Jeff. It's really good. But you got to swim through this thing, like, to get the nuggets. So I'm usually going 20, 25 minutes, but 5 minutes I can check the box.
Yep.
I've got my monthly newsletter, and I've got my weekly social media that you help me with.
Nice.
So that's, and then I've got something I do for my church, which is also a weekly activity. So the newsletter's monthly, 2 weekly activities. I got a daily scripture, and I got a stretching. Those are my 11.
So notice here, I just want to point this out to streakers for just a second here. All aspects of life, there is an opportunity to have a streak around it. So Chris has physical streaks, professional streaks, spiritual streaks, and social streaks.
And family.
And family. Yeah, there's family. You have streaks in all one of those areas. Now, one area that I would just raise to the level of consciousness is one of the things that we do.
One to me.
I'm going to suggest this.
Some gentle coaching is about to happen.
It's about to happen, and that is this. Rather than focus on the time, it's the activity. So in other words, I'm going to do at least 1 visualization or 5 visualizations daily.
Okay.
I'm going to do
about that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm really curious about that.
And
so
so
the activity is better than the time stamp.
Exactly. Yeah, because what happens is, and this is one of the things we found as we go with streakers across the board, is they start to focus on the clock rather than the activity. And the activity is the key here. The activity of visualization is what you need to do. The activity of lifting is what you need to do. And that, now, it may take, like if you do, I'm going to do at least 1 bicep, 1 tricep, 1 chest, 1 back.
Yeah. You think
now
I can get it even more laughable, even more simple, and I'll still get my upside.
Yeah. And that's the
coaching.
Yeah. So now what you're doing is and honestly, that's why I love what you do with Ben and with Aaron is connect with Ben and Aaron, the activity is what's critical.
Funny that you said that. That's one of my better streaks. That's one of my longer. That is one of my longer streaks.
Absolutely. And
stretching is one of my longer streaks. I struggle a little bit more with the time activated, with the timestamp ones.
Yep. And if you take the timestamp off and put the activity on, your streaks will remain a floor for, I mean, it's the floor that you just keep going and going and going on.
I don't really need it. I mean, I don't, if I get on the bike, I'm going to do something. I don't need
exactly
15 minutes. If I get to the gym, I'm not going to do less than 10 minutes.
Right. Exactly.
You've got it. Yep.
And now I have to give credit where credit's due. Where I learned that from was actually from you. And it sounds odd, but it's from the work of the 4 disciplines of execution. Because in lead measures, you don't focus on time; you focus on activity. And that is really where. And so what I thought about as far as that's concerned,
that's in 40X. Yeah. Right,
yeah. And that's where, as you and I would talk about it, for example, when you're trying to accomplish some goal of some sort, you are focused on the activity to get that goal. It does not matter how much time you spend specifically, but it does matter how many times you do that activity. And I think that's what really set me free within streaking, because Jamie, you had a time streak with the boys, didn't you? What was it?
Well, I don't know with the boys. I know. Well,
wasn't it 5 minutes of reading or something like that?
There were two that I set as timed goals when we started, which was write in my journal for 5 minutes and read for 5 minutes. And the thing that's interesting is that you're exactly right, is that 5 minutes you do start to focus on the clock, because I look at the comparison of what my streaks are now, which is write 1 sentence in my journal or read 5 sentences to the boys, which is the average size of a paragraph. But so there's days that, I got my 1 sentence out. It can only take, sometimes it takes 30 seconds to a minute to write that. If it's 4 minutes that I have left, I'm focusing on that 4 minutes. The 1 sentence is no longer, the activity hasn't counted yet. And I think that's what you were saying, Jeff, is that it's like the activity that you've done it, that's what counts, is that you did it.
And so that's where I would go to, Chris, as you think about the time matrix, I change that to the activity matrix. Mm-hmm. See, the activities that I'm doing in quadrant 2 are the critical ones that I do. Now, I may take a lot of time on those or little time, but it's the consecutive consistency that wins the day. That's the compound interest. That's the thing that builds up through time and really brings the victory.
And I think that's an interesting thing too, because if you look at it, it's the difference sometimes that they talk about being busy and being productive, in the sense that you can spend 30 minutes doing something and not really get much done, but you feel like, oh, I did something because I spent 30 minutes on it. And it's this focus on the time rather than on the activity, in kind of a negative way, maybe saying that. But the idea is the same, that the activity is where the power is. And the time, sometimes you can get a lot done in a little bit of time, and sometimes you can get not much done in a lot of time. And so if the time becomes the measurement, I think it dulls and maybe takes away from the power of the activity.
So as we finish up here, this has been a dynamic conversation. Chris, as you go forward,
for me, I got a half a dozen things out of it. You got to send me the file on this one.
Oh yeah, we'll send it over to you. As we finish up here, what was it? The thing that I wanted to ask you, and I don't know if I've asked you before or not, but when you got into all the work of execution, I mean, you have this best-selling book and everything else. What was it that prompted you? Because it prompted you into the work of execution. Because I mean, you've obviously spent a lot of time within the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. You spent a lot of time on helping people to really become them best selves. But really where you put laser focus was on execution. What took you into that? And how come you decided down that path?
Yeah. So I really dove into execution, put all my eggs in that basket in 2003. Okay, so I was involved a little bit in 2002, but so I'm really entering the 20th year now for this thing. But it was something that happened in 96. In 96, I started a process of changing how I talk to my clients in sales. And I got very disciplined around interviewing leaders. And instead of being transactional, I started to just really understand and really get into their heads. And between 96 and I'd probably say 99, that was an enormous education for me. And it was during that period of time that pattern of issues around execution kept coming up, and I kept seeing, I didn't have words for it, but several hundred leaders I had interviewed over those 3 years at a really deep level, gotten into their world. And then by 2003, that the company had started looking at that issue. And when I saw that, I mean, we had 20 different leadership topics, but when I saw that, it really resonated with that work. So sometimes, I don't know if there's a moral in that or not. There is for me. I really want my kids to be engaged in something with full intent, even if they can't see where it's going to take them or what it's going to be for. If you throw yourself into something, good things have a way of happening.
I think that goes back to your purpose and progress, and because I love when you brought up the difference between satisfaction and engagement. I was thinking about those two words, and I'm like, satisfaction gives you this idea of I'm good, I'm satisfied. Yeah. I don't need to move forward anymore. Right. I'm good, and to me, I don't know if that's where I want to be. So this idea of looking at being like, no, we need purpose and progression. And when we have those things, that's when you really are engaged and you start to get movement. And
with all my heart, I believe that. When I stop contributing, I am not a happy person. Mm-hmm. It's not a good, really living a good life is not about having all your needs satisfied. If you're going down that road, brace yourself for disappointment.
Yeah.
That is a mic drop.
Jim
I think
so too.
Wish for everyone is that they could get enormous amounts of fame and money, just so they could realize how little it actually brings you.
Wow. Well, I think that's the mic drop right there.
I think so too.
It has been a dynamic conversation with Chris McChesney, the author of The 4 Disciplines of Execution, best-selling author there, fantastic keynote speaker. We've enjoyed having you, and obviously great friend. We love being with the McChesneys anytime and at any place. So we'll have to plan another spring break.
Next time we do this, we get Constance.
That's
yes.
right.
She's gonna
Absolutely.
be so jealous when she sees this. She's gonna be like, "What?
How come I didn't get on?
Why am I not?"
We will bring her on. The other half of Chris McChesney.
Yeah, next time you'll see a much more controlled, subdued Chris on the podcast.
So a couple of things that I learned that I took away from Chris and continue to. One, it's the intrinsic value that brings you what it is, who you want to be inside, and your progress and purpose in life that takes you toward that. That's one of the things I really took away from today, Jamie.
I just I've always loved Chris and his enthusiasm and his ability to be able to distill kind of abstract concepts down to something that's very understandable. And so for me, it's this idea of satisfaction versus engagement, and that we want to be engaged. And the way that we have that is through progress and purpose, feeling a real purpose behind what we're doing.
And the final thing, be a net contributor, not a net consumer. Contribution is where you get your purpose in life, right? Net contributor, not a net consumer.
Look at Jamie and Jeff, man, right? they have thrown themselves into a work that's having a huge impact on not just me, but on my family, on my wife, on my daughters. It's really making a difference in the world, and I wish everybody all the best in this. It's a great effort. It's a great cause.
Well, thanks, Chris. We appreciate it. Hey, you can follow Chris McChesney on the Streaking app. If you download the Streaking app and look for Chris, you'll see him in there. Follow him, follow his streaks, and offer him congratulations on all the great streaks that he's taken together, or start your own streaks. Again, that's the Streaking app. You can get it at the Apple App Store, or you can get it at Google Play. Also, if you'd like to ask Jamie or I any any questions or have us discuss a particular topic, please reach out to us at Jeffrey, Jeffery, at streakingmastery.com or
Jamie at JAMI at streakingmastery.com.
And if you want to reach out to Chris, he's got his own website, Chris McChesney 40X, is that right? .com? Yeah, Chris McChesney 40X.com. Go there, he's fantastic. Until we have the opportunity to talk again,
keep streaking.
It's the little things that make a better